Hello everyone and welcome to the Legacy of the Monsterverse reviews. For this first one, we're going to revisit back to 2014 with Godzilla 2014. The plot to Godzilla 2014 will follow Ford Brody as well as Joe Brody. Well, at the start, they find evidence to prove that giant monsters exist. However, once two giant monsters known as the Mutos surface up to destroy, it's up to the humans to rely on the king of the monsters himself, Godzilla, to help stop the menace. And that's pretty much the plot to Godzilla 2014. For starters, I do think Godzilla 2014 is a great beginning chapter to the Monsterverse. I know that the movie is a bit more serious compared to some of the other Godzilla films or the Kong films that are in the Monsterverse, but for so far, I do really enjoy Godzilla. It's more of a serious movie compared to all the other Monsterverse films. And yeah, there are some issues with it which I will probably talk about later in the video, but so far, as like an opening to the Monsterverse, I do feel like Godzilla definitely is a great film to open up the Monsterverse, even though it's not going to be, all the movies aren't exactly like Godzilla 2014 in the Monsterverse. But anyway, let's just dive in first to the history of the film, which won't get too deep into because I can mention in another video, but there is a long history in trying to adapt an American Godzilla movie to the big screen. It all started in 1983 when Steve Miner, who made Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3, wanted to make Godzilla into the US. This time the movie would be called Godzilla King of the Monsters 3D. Story will have Godzilla see one of his dead sons and would think that the humans were responsible for it, which causes Godzilla's attack mode. William Stout was brought to make the Godzilla models and the Godzilla effects for the movie. This is what Godzilla's design would look like, and it looked like a Tyrannosaurus Godzilla hybrid creature. All was going well, that was until the budget blew up, which meant that the film was unfortunately cancelled because no studios wanted to buy the film due to how expensive it was. Miner would give the rights back to Toho, and Toho released the Godzilla 1985. However, due to Godzilla's popularity going up in 1994, it would be directed by John DeBont. In this movie, there was going to be Godzilla facing off against another monster known as the Griffin, which was this awesome bat-like monster creature that gets formed by using other animals and living creatures, leading to the final fight scene where Godzilla would face off against the Griffin in New York. A Godzilla model was made by Stan Winston and Stan Winston Studios, and as you can see, this is what the design would look like in the movie, and it looks awesome. Unfortunately, however, the film was cancelled due to budgeting. John DeBont wanted the film to be 140 to 180 million, however, the studio wanted to make it 100 million for the budget of the movie, and sadly this Godzilla idea never got made. However, that is until Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin stepped in to make their own Godzilla movie, and this is what led to Godzilla 1998. Whether you like the movie or not, it was eventually made. Godzilla Final Wars would mark as the final film in the Millennium era and the Godzilla franchise back then as a whole. However, plans of an American Godzilla movie were still in the works. Godzilla vs. Hedorah director Yoshimitsu Banno was in talks to make the next Godzilla movie, which was called Godzilla 3D, which would come out in the US. Obviously, this would be another Godzilla vs. Hedorah movie. However, this time will be in IMAX screenings and in 3D. Release date of 2008. Unfortunately though, the movie never got made. During Godzilla's retirement, there were some other kaiju movies such as Cloverfield and Pacific Rim that was getting released. However, it was officially announced in 2009 that Legendary Pictures was in talk with Toho to make their own Godzilla movie. However, the news eventually became official as Legendary had just acquired the Godzilla license and was going to make their own Godzilla movie. Most Godzilla fans were worried about this because of the last American Godzilla movie from 1998. However, that would all change when Legendary revealed in a Comic-Con panel what the new Godzilla would look like here, and this was the image. And after the image struck, everyone was instantly on board with the idea and knew that Legendary definitely wasn't going to fail at this, just like Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin in 98. Then all of a sudden, teaser trailers were starting to show up at Comic-Cons and stuff, particularly these trailers of glimpses of the monsters and the destruction that Godzilla would leave behind. We also got a little look at what Godzilla would look like in the film as well in these teasers. Then, officially, trailers started popping up with, of course, the official trailer fully getting released in 2013 and 2014. Godzilla will then be released in May 2014, and the movie would do really well, making $530 million on a $160 million budget, which was very successful. However, there were some criticisms of the film, however, that surfaced. One of those criticisms being that some of the scenes of Godzilla in the trailer weren't in the film. such as this one scene right here that got replaced with Godzilla fighting one of the Mutos. Also, Bryan Cranston's character pretty much gone. Also, a lot of people didn't like the fact that Godzilla wasn't really the main focus of the movie, because in the trailers it showed more of Godzilla being a bad guy, but now it's a force of nature trying to protect the world from the Mutos, which, yeah, they're the main focus of the movie. So there was a bit of controversy with Godzilla 2014 when it came to critics and the fan base. Critics did like the film, however, and it's got a 76% on Rotten Tomatoes score. So, yeah. But anyway, let's talk about Godzilla in depth right now, and we are going to start off by talking about right now what is considered the most important part of a Godzilla movie because of -1, the characters. So here are the characters. Human development in the Monsterverse for into Godzilla 2014. Well, I'm sorry to say, but the humans aren't the best humans in the Monsterverse. The only good character, in my opinion, is Bryan Cranston's character. I think we can all agree. Walter White was the best part about this movie. I mean, he's the really only big star in the movie, and yeah, I know Bryan Cranston is a dedicated actor, but I mean, out of all the characters in the movie, Bryan Cranston's the best, but in my own opinion, this is something I think I'm gonna dive into the negatives of this film, but I just absolutely hate that they killed him off so early into the movie. But I really love Bryan Cranston's character in this movie, even though he gets he gets more screen time at the start, but then he gets killed off super early, which is something I'm really annoyed about, which we'll go a bit later. See what the main character is, though. And the main character of the film is, why is there a piece of wood there? Oh, wait, that's because he is a piece of wood, okay. Now, I'm trying to remember what this guy's name is. Army soldier dude. Okay, I'm just kidding. I know the guy's character's name. He's Adrian Brody, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. Now, I do like some of Aaron Taylor Johnson's movies or his acting performance in some of these movies. Like, I especially like Kick-Ass. But I don't know, in my opinion, I think this is his weakest performance. I mean, he literally plays just this expressionless army soldier dude with a family. And, I mean, he's just a nothing character. Like, he doesn't do anything special. He doesn't have a goal or anything. I mean, yes, he's a soldier and he's protecting, that's his job. He's trying to protect, like, everyone from Godzilla and the Mutos and stuff. But he had no, like, goals or anything, or he didn't really care all too much in the film. And the whole movie, we're just following him. And I just don't really like his character. Like, it's just a boring character, disappointing character. But anyway, next up here we have Adrian Brody's wife, Ellie Brody, played by Elizabeth Olsen. She was good in the film, but she only got like a bit of, like, she wasn't too much in the film. I would say she's a little bit in the film. I mean, we don't know too much. I mean, we know she's a hospital worker. She works at a hospital, but there's not really much to her character, so again, another kind of disappointing character. And then we have Sam Brody, played by Carson Bold, who is alright in the movie. It's just another child character or child actor in the movie. This time he's not annoying, which is really good, like most kid actors, so he's alright in the movie. Next up here we have Serizawa, played by Ken Watanabe, and in my opinion, he's the best character, or the second best character, besides Bryan Cranston's character in the film. But my only problem is I do kind of feel like there are some writing issues with his character, and I think that goes to most of the characters in this movie, because there are some issues with, you know, when it comes to plot with some of the characters. I mean, he is an interesting character. I think he's more interesting in King of the Monsters because he has more connections to Godzilla, but I mean, one plot problem I have with his character is that he always has to rely on Godzilla to destroy the Mutos, even though there could be a couple other things that could kill the Mutos that's besides Godzilla. But that's more into the plot. We also had Dr. Vivine, played by Sally Hawkins, which, I mean, her character was just in the film just for another character to go alongside Serizawa. So she's alright in the film, but, I mean, she's just mostly a plot character with Serizawa. But anyway, now let's move on to the monsters. Now, what would the US do to Godzilla after 1998, that monstrosity? Well, this is what we got. And if you hated 1998, this was definitely your Godzilla. For a Godzilla depiction in the US. And I really, really like this Godzilla design. I mean, he looks more like an elephant as well, like a huge giant elephant, which is one thing that's really interesting about this Godzilla. Now, I know I've heard some nitpicks about the design about some people. I do think the design does get better when we go to King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong, but still though, I still really like the Godzilla design in 2014. You can tell this is a more modern interpretation of Godzilla, and also the atomic breath. The atomic breath was one of the best Godzilla atomic breath scenes of all time. Well, not of all time, because that award goes to -1, but that, the first time we see Godzilla's atomic breath in this movie, is absolutely, like, thrilling, and absolutely, like, it gives you goosebumps. It's amazing. And of course, Godzilla's not the only one in this movie, because we also have some new threats in the film. So the two main monsters or main threats of the film are these guys, the MUTOs, which stands for Massive Unidentified Terrestrial Organism. The MUTOs are able to have electric pulses that literally shut off all the electricity power that is nearby, which is definitely a unique power, and which is what makes them a threat as well. In the movie, there are only two MUTOs, that being the male MUTO that we see at the start, and the female MUTO at the end. And in my opinion, what do I think of the MUTOs? And well, to be honest, I don't really like, the MUTOs. I think they're alright, but it's just that, in terms of villains, to be honest, they're not really that much villains. They were just, like, in my opinion, I just thought they were just animals more than monsters. Like, they were just trying to breed, but obviously, I kind of feel bad for them. They're kind of like we're forced in human civilization, and, they were kind of, got defeated by Godzilla, but anyway, still though, I don't think they're really villains, that's just in my opinion, but I can see why society sees them as a threat, because they're giant and they're monsters, and technically they're destroying cities and shutting off all the electricity. So anyway, also this monster kind of reminds me of the Cloverfield monster. I don't know if they copied it or not, but I guess America just likes making monsters that look like Cloverfield. So anyway, the first scene where we get to see Godzilla for the first time is really thrilling and amazing. That is the scene where it takes place in Hawaii. And also, it's the first time that we get to hear Godzilla's roar. And Godzilla's roar just gives me goosebumps. It's an amazing roar. The part where we see that he's about to fight the MUTO. However, we cut to a TV. Well, I guess that was a disappointing battle. But besides that, most of Godzilla's scenes are one of the best scenes of the entire movie in my opinion, such as the Golden Gate Bridge scene, which is thrilling, and the ending of the film, which is amazing, which Godzilla wakes up from his long sleep after defeating all the MUTOs, and he heads back to the sea with everyone calling him the King of the Monsters. However, I think my favourite scene in the entire film is probably the finale battle, even though I know most people complain you can't see a thing, and I do agree with them, which is something I'll get to in my criticisms, but still though, I really like the finale battle to this movie where Godzilla's fighting both the MUTOs. It's such an amazing, atmospheric battle in my opinion. And also Godzilla's atomic breath. I said it, it's one of the best atomic breath moments of all time. It's one of the best moments in the Monsterverse as a whole. I mean, the setup for Godzilla's atomic breath, it's just amazing. It's divine. It especially colors up the darkness a little bit for the film as well, for the final battle. But anyway, also Godzilla finishing off the female MUTO at the end of the film was incredible. Probably one of the best Godzilla kills of all time. Some other parts besides the Godzilla parts that were the best parts of the film was probably the MUTO scenes, where especially the beginning of the MUTO scene where the MUTO hatches from its cocoon, I think was one of the scariest scenes in the film, even though it wasn't really that terrifying, but still though, is an intense moment. Also, I like the beginning of the film, which was one of the saddest moments of the film, where Bryan Cranston loses his wife in the movie in the beginning of the film, which was a really sad moment. I also liked a lot of Bryan Cranston's scenes in the film, and I especially liked when Bryan Cranston was Aaron Taylor-Johnson in the film. Chemistry between him and his son was amazing, even though it didn't really last long, unfortunately, but still though, I think the scenes with them definitely were one of the best parts of the film, even though I reckon they could have made those scenes a bit longer. Especially, I think, keeping Bryan Cranston's character to the end of the film, but that's going to jump more into criticism territory. But anyway, speaking of criticisms, let's just talk about them right now. But now we're going to go over the things that I didn't like about Godzilla 2014, and while it is quite good of a film, there are just some problems that I have with the movie, and just some things that they had wasted potential in and that it should have done. The first one, of course, I know I'm going to mention this again, but the death of Bryan Cranston. But I'm serious, Bryan Cranston had so much potential to be the main character in this movie, but they totally wasted his character in the beginning of the film. Like, he didn't even meet Godzilla at all in the film. Also, I didn't like how the trailers, how they were hyping him up as, him, like, being the main character, but then they totally wasted the opportunity in the movie. So, I mean, I guess they were doing that just for promotional, because he was starring in Breaking Bad, I'm not too sure. But just a wasted opportunity in the end. Going back to the final fight between Godzilla and the Mutos, I love the fight, but unfortunately, I just can't really see through the dark. I know they do this a lot in monster movies, and I just don't really like it, and that's, showing the monsters in pitch dark areas where you can't see them in. I find that very annoying, and I just can't see a thing. But, they eventually fix that throughout the rest of the Monsterverse, and plus, it lightens up when Godzilla shows off his awesome atomic breath in that scene. But also, another thing that I can't understand is not showing Godzilla enough. They pretty much show it like a Godzilla scene, but then it cuts to a TV, so yeah, that was very annoying and totally unnecessary. Should have gotten a battle then. But anyway, my final complaint, and this is just a kind of small complaint, and that's that I wish this was just a standalone Godzilla movie. I didn't really want, any other monsters to be in it. I just wanted this to be just a standalone Godzilla movie. Now, this is a little bit like, I kind of understand why they put another monster in it, but to be honest, if you want to start the Monsterverse, I feel like I could have taken it a bit differently and not have the Mutos in there and just have a standalone Godzilla movie without the Mutos. But, that's just a thing I would change, and pretty much if, to start the Monsterverse, really. Call me -1 fanboy, I don't care. I just felt like, I reckon this should have been a standalone Godzilla movie in the first place. But anyway, that's just my own opinion. I forgot to mention one part in the best parts, and that is the camera direction to the film. The camera directing by Gareth Edwards really makes it amazing to this movie, and probably one of the best parts of the film, which I forgot to mention. And throughout the movie, mostly the camera is pretty much, like eye level towards these monsters as like a human perspective. Like you're literally watching these monsters battle, and, watching these monsters destroy stuff. And I think, like, the camera direction in Godzilla 2014 is definitely one of the best in terms of, like, camera direction in the Monsterverse. And I really do like, this movie when it comes to camera directing. It even makes you feel like you are in the movie watching these monsters wreak havoc to the city. I really love the way that they handled Godzilla in this movie. And to be honest, this is definitely the best interpretation of an American Godzilla that we have ever had. And I think, to all the people that really hated 1998, this is how you handle an American Godzilla. So that was Godzilla 2014, and to be honest, I actually really enjoyed the film. I don't think it's terrible in any way, I just think there were just some story and missed opportunities with the film, particularly it being, the first Monsterverse movie, and also a standalone Godzilla film. I just wish, we had just a standalone Godzilla film here, but that's just my own opinion. But anyway, I do really enjoy still Godzilla 2014. I actually really like the trailers as well that came out back and then when they were advertising Godzilla 2014. There's a serious dark tone to the trailers. They just looked amazing. But obviously we did eventually get lied to when we finally saw the final product of the film. But that still doesn't make it a bad movie. I definitely enjoy Godzilla 2014 and I do watch it from time to time. So in my opinion, I give Godzilla 2014 a 7 out of 10. This movie is definitely the best handle of an American Godzilla. And there's also the starting point of what we will see to come in the Monsterverse in the near future. So anyway, what do you guys think of Godzilla 2014? Now, it's time we head into the mysterious jungles of Skull Island. Yep, up with our next review of Kong Skull Island. See you then.